Okay, so we are back, and today we're going to touch on a couple different things. One being sellers, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'll let Colleen run into that. Again, if you haven't been here with us before, this is Homes and Loans. This is my
Colleen
girl,
Mitchell, CMG Home
Colleen
Loans.
Mitchell. She's the best. I am Angela Jaspon with United Preferred, and we've both been in the business and working together in the Orlando area for 20 plus years. But
I looked at that the other day. It was 29. I feel so
29.
old.
I don't know if any of you saw my other video at the end of the year where I was like, true story. I was, sorry to riff here, but I was going on about like, they were talking on the radio about 2026 and I was like, I did not graduate 30 years ago. Like it has not been 30 years. I can't be that old. Like it's just, I can't deal.
I know.
My daughter
Time
being
flies.
17, where has the time gone? I'm telling you, it's craziness.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My mom used to say, the older you get, the faster time goes. She is absolutely right.
It's my husband sent me a picture the other day of our kids, and like my daughter was like 4 at the time, and my son was like, I don't know, 1 or 2. And I was like, where? Like that literally seems like it was a different life. I want back my little babies. Because now they're like, you're stupid. Like,
Yeah,
it's not that you're stupid, but like they don't need you.
They
like
leave
I
and
can
come
live
back,
on my
though.
own without you now. Except I need you to support me.
Well, they do leave and they come back. So as they get older, they need their parents. But right now, they think they know everything.
That's too funny. So anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about sellers today. And I'm sure you also, so here's the funny thing. You do deal with sellers.
I do.
I mean, I know when you think mortgages in general, you're thinking you just deal with buyers. But you've helped me on several sellers. So for example, and we'll touch base on that. There are a couple things that I always recommend for sellers. One is obviously preparing the property. Even when someone has a property listed with someone else and it doesn't work out, and then like say I'm the second listing agent, and then I go in and I'm like, okay, these are the issues that I'm seeing, right? You couldn't understand the layout from those photos. There was no walkthrough video. There was no floor plan. This house has 0 curb appeal. Like I'm working on a listing now. It is brown city. Everything is brown, like from the grass to the landscaping to the house. It's just brown everywhere. And I'm like, we have to change this. Like, no one's going to get past the first photo to even see the inside of the house. And it's a great house. But you have to have curb appeal to make people want to go to the next photo, to want to see the inside, right? So it's things like that. But on top of like the presentation and having curb appeal and doing what's necessary to get the property ready to actually be listed, we talk about things like buyer incentives. Right. And I know that you guys offer a program, which I've used in the past, where basically we lock in the rate up front. I pay that on behalf of the seller. And then should any buyer that comes to purchase the property go through you, they get a rate buy down. So I'll let you explain that program a little bit.
That one's called List and Lock.
List and Lock, yes.
So it's for sellers that want to advertise a below market interest rate. Yes. CMG absorbs 1% of the rate buy down. And then we add that to whatever the seller's willing to do. So if it's 2%, 3%, typically we see the seller do 2% and then CMG does 1%. So then that's a 3% buy down, which would typically save you about 3/4 to a point in the interest rate.
Which is huge. So say you're looking at my listing and I've done the list and lock with Colleen, like we're talking about in this example.
Right.
Then, interest rates are currently 5.75, at least what we're hoping for, right?
Exactly.
And then now if you're doing that loan through,
and do the list and lock, we may be in the 4s.
Exactly. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. And then you trying to go back as a buyer and try and get that deal from another lender, they're not gonna just pay all those points for you. It's just
right.
They're not gonna be able to compete with that.
Yeah, it's a great program.
It's a great program.
It's not for everybody.
No,
I mean we do have a couple different options. So we do have that flat $50 option where the rate is floating.
Yes. Okay.
While it's being sold. And then once they obtain a buyer, then we look and see where the rates are, and then we can do the list and lock at that time. But you still get all the great marketing material where you can put that out there for any prospective buyers. So it's a great product. It's not for everybody. Obviously, we're in a trending down market.
Yeah.
So maybe not lock that rate in up front and do the floating option so that you can take advantage of CMG paying the 1% and the seller paying whatever they decide.
I think another big misconception between buyers and sellers is that buyers will say, "Oh, I want that house and I want them to take 25,000 off the price." Because, that'll help my monthly payment.
Right.
Not understanding that literally if they were and so I usually tell my clients, I don't want you to do a huge price reduction. If they are priced correctly, I don't want a huge price reduction. You are better off to offer to pay down the interest rate,
right?
Because that makes a huge difference in your payment over 20. Like if you can give a scenario where
so let's just say that you had a purchase price of 500 and your seller's thinking of dropping it to 475.
Yeah.
If we run the numbers to show a buyer what their payment is going to be at the 500, getting the incentive from the seller, typically their payment's actually going to be less because you're using that money to buy down the interest rate versus do the price reduction.
Yeah.
So highly recommend that you talk to your lender about doing an option like that, because it's definitely going to be worth doing a permanent buy down using seller incentive versus dropping the price.
I 100% agree. For whatever reason, it's one of those things where I feel like people really struggle to put their mind around it. But listen, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I want to get this seller down on the price, and you're the buyer, just have your lender or call Colleen if you're thinking about buying, you're stalking this property online, but you want it to be $25,000 less because then it will meet your budget. Don't. Just call and have her run the numbers, give you an estimate, and you'll see the difference. Because I'm telling you, when you buy your interest rate down versus getting the loan cheaper, your payment is less. So if you're bigger, it depends what is more important to you, right? If you're planning to pay it off in 5 years, that might not be a big deal to you, right? If you're thinking, okay, I'm getting a 30-year mortgage, my payment every month is super important to me, and I wanted to keep it in this bracket, then have her run it where, you're going to show the lower interest rate and see what a difference it makes on your payment. Because generally, it's much bigger than you think it's going to be.
Exactly.
So that's.
And do you get buyers right now that are saying, well, I'm just going to wait and see if the market comes down more?
I do, but that was more in 2025.
Okay.
Now that we're in the first couple weeks of 2026, this is the first time in several years where I've seen so many buyers reach out right after the first of the year. I mean, I know that used to be the trend.
Right.
But after COVID and over the last couple of years, it really I haven't seen that trend. But I'm telling you, in the last week, I've had several buyers already reach out. So I think they're finally seeing the writing on the wall.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm hopeful of that. So, but yeah, I'm and there are still people that are out there hesitating, right? Of course, there's always going to be.
Exactly.
They're waiting to see what's happening with the Fed chair change and all these other things in Venezuela. Like, there's just so much going on in the world.
And like you were talking about with, when a home buyer waits, and then you've got a bunch of buyers, out there looking, and values are going to start to go back up. And then they might not get the incentive from the seller at that point if there's multiple offers.
Well, that's 100% true. But I always tell them, you fall in love with the house, you date the rate, because you can get the house at a better price now, right?
Right.
Well, rates might not be ideal for you. But you can then refinance, recast, whatever to get your payment down, right? If you wait until the interest rates are lower, the prices are going to be higher. Your competition is going to be higher. And at the end of the day, you are going to pay more.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So the reality is people who wait, I don't think there's ever been a 10-year period where home prices haven't increased. So you keep waiting for rates to go down. And the whole time, home prices are increasing, whether rates are going down or not, because we have not. I saw a statistic the other day that from 2020 to 2026, home prices in Florida have increased 42%. People, did you hear that? 42%. That's huge. And that's why we were having such a slowdown, because that was making the price point, really hard for first-time home buyers. You're pushing so many people out of the market when interest rates are still high.
Right.
So now that prices have kind of streamlined a little bit, and we're still going to see an increase, but not in double digits like we did for a few years.
Exactly.
And now the interest rates are starting to come down. It's like that perfect mix where I say this is the year. If you're looking to buy,
agree.
This is the year, because
I agree.
We also don't know what the new tax proposal that's coming up in this year. I believe they're putting it on the ballot to try and get rid of
the property taxes.
The property taxes. And that's another thing where you have people coming here from other states, like, okay, no income tax, no property tax. I can own my property free and clear and not have to pay
Exactly.
the government. I mean, those are all things that, again, I think will be another boost in property values
Well,
here
that's
in
in
Florida.
November, so everybody better vote.
I know. If you're a homeowner, I'm sure you're voting for it. You know what I mean? If you want to be a homeowner, you're going to want to vote for
Right.
that,
And I
right?
think they're
Because
limiting that to primary residents.
they are.
But still, that they said that's only like about 30% of
Yeah.
what we collect on property taxes annually. So I still think it'll be definitely assist those new buyers
Yes.
with the affordability issue that we have here in Florida. If they didn't have to pay property taxes, just
Well, you
imagine
think
how
about
much more
that.
of a home you could qualify for.
Think about that because like on an average home, right? On an average home, I'll see the property taxes might between $5,000 and $6,000. That's $500 a month in your payment just for taxes that you're going
Right.
to pay in perpetuity
Yeah.
forever, even after you pay off that 30 year or that
Exactly.
15-year mortgage. And then as your value increases, so do your taxes each year.
Yep.
So you think, and obviously that generally affects first-time home buyers the most, people who are retired or elderly or on a fixed income. So when you take that off their plate, it
yeah.
is a game changer.
Well, they should at that age, especially
Yeah.
if you're up there in age and you're retired, you should be able to own your
Well,
house.
you're not generally
without
seeing
having to
those
pay all
increases in your
expenses.
income.
Yeah.
So when the tax bill keeps increasing, you
Yep.
can't really keep up with it. And so that I'm hoping something at least happens.
Well, the other thing I've
those.
seen is insurance. There's a lot
yeah.
more carriers in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Some are getting out of it, but there's a lot of new carriers. So I've seen some real competitive insurance rates too.
Oh, that's good.
So insurance has come down, which also helps in the affordability. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping there will be more carriers for 2026.
Well, I think so. There are certain things you can shop around for, right? Like different loan programs,
Right.
Whether or not maybe doing an adjustable rate versus a fixed, a 30
Right.
versus a 20 versus a 15-year, all of those things, right? You got to shop around for. But there are certain things you can't adjust, like your tax bill, right?
Taxes and insurance.
the houses of the pricing on the houses, so
Right.
things like that. So good stuff to definitely pay attention to, people.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
a lot more goes into real estate and buying homes
Oh,
and
yeah.
selling homes than I think people ever really realize until they listen to something like this, and then they're like, "Wow, that's a lot more
Exactly.
than I ever knew
And even
about."
I've been in the business for such a long time, but things change all the time.
Yeah.
Programs change. So you definitely need to make sure that you're working with a reputable, experienced lender.
That's true, and agent for sure.
And agent,
Well,
absolutely.
like we were saying before, I mean, it used to be like 7 to 10 years for, foreclosure or
Right.
bankruptcy, things like that. And depending on the loan, those have changed. Or like, medical bills would hold you back from getting a loan, and
Right.
now that's not the case. Or your
Right.
credit score would hold you back, and now that's not the case. So you really want to be working with someone that this is all they do. They're up to date on what's happening, on the changes, and how it
Absolutely.
affects
And there's
everything.
been so many positive changes this past year as far as qualifying for a loan, with the credit score and just the different loan programs. Like right now I have one and the buyer has a 539.
Mm-hmm.
So he's putting down 20% and I'm able to help him as well because
Yeah.
we do have a minimum credit score of 580, but we do make exceptions anything below 580. So it just depends on the total credit profile of that buyer. So
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff.
Well, what are you thinking the biggest issues are that you're seeing, buyers working with as far as credit issues? Like, why would you have a credit score of 530? Like, I mean, not to get personal, but like,
It's typically when you got to score that low, it's typically going to be late pays.
okay, for whatever.
Late pays and collections.
Okay.
If it's just a matter of, increasing your credit card debt, that doesn't always do it.
Mhm.
Although I've recently had somebody that had absolutely no lates, but low credit, and it's because most of their credit cards were maxed out.
Oh,
So
right.
that's an easy fix if you have the money to pay them down. So I can run the simulator, say, okay, pay it down to this.
Isn't there a rule of thumb that you're supposed to keep your balances under 50% to optimize
It's actually
your credit score?
30%.
30%. Okay,
So
well, I
30%.
was wrong, people. Hear that? 30%.
I highly recommend you keep your cards at 30% or below. If you have, let's say, a few cards, as long as you're keeping it at 30% or below, it should not impact your credit score. And of
Okay.
course, make your payments on time. So
And I know we were going over some options the other day for a buyer, and I think it's important for people to know that if you have more of a down payment, you also get a better interest rate.
Right.
Right. So we were like, okay, if you put down 20%, you're at X. If 25%, you're at X.
Exactly.
Why? So again,
especially for investors in second home purchases, the more you put down, the better your rate gets.
Yeah.
So yeah, credit, down payment, and loan amount is really what's going to trigger the rate.
yeah. Okay, good stuff. Well, again, my sellers, their biggest thing is trying to figure out how to juggle when they're selling and then buying.
yeah.
You know, so there's a lot on the table to digest when you're a seller, right? Because
100%.
it's like I'm going to tell you we should do these updates and changes. We should stage it. You know, we do invest a little bit of money so that it will show 100%, things like that. And then, you know, again, trying to incentivize them to price it right and get the buyers there by offering list and lock and getting a lower interest rate, things like that. But then
Right.
also trying to help them find something new, relocate, things like that. Where,
Exactly.
you know, you're trying to do a same day closing, or you know, there's just that's why it's so important you work with people that have all of your deadlines. We're in
Yep.
line with. Okay, Colleen, are we going to have this closing package at 9
Yep.
a.m. so they can close on their new house at 11 p.m. at 11 a.m.?
We
And
do
it's
that
all
all the
we
time.
do it all the time, but
Yeah.
it is stressful on
It
them
is.
for sure. So
It is.
just things like that.
Absolutely.
But we're here. We're here to help you guys, whether you're a buyer or a seller, whether you're looking for loan information or want to know the current stats in, you know, any of our local areas. We're here to help. So
Absolutely. Give us a call.
yes.